At 89, Robert Redford speaks about Paul Newman not with drama or revelation, but with the calm clarity of a man who has lived long enough to understand what truly lasts. Time has softened the edges of fame and sharpened the meaning of friendship, and Redford's reflections come from that quiet place where memory meets perspective. He does not frame Newman as a legend first, but as a presence, steady, generous, and deeply human. In his later years, Redford has grown more comfortable letting silence do some of the talking, and when he does speak, it is with intention. His words about Newman are less about the past than about values, humility, craft, loyalty, and decency. What emerges is not nostalgia, but appreciation, a sense that some relationships help shape who we become long after the spotlight fades, and that speaking honestly about them is a form of respect, growing into creativity and independence. Born in Santa Monica in 1936, Robert Redford grew up surrounded by contrasts that quietly shaped his worldview. His mother's artistic sensibility introduced him to creativity as a way of seeing, while his father's scientific discipline offered structure and grounding. Southern California exposed him early to both everyday working life and the distant glow of Hollywood, planting curiosity without forcing direction. Redford's youth was marked by exploration rather than certainty, and his early struggles with focus and belonging later gave him empathy for others navigating similar uncertainty. Education, travel, and personal loss helped mature his outlook, gradually guiding him toward the arts not as ambition, but as expression. These formative years taught him independence and reflection, qualities that later defined both his performances and his relationships. By the time he entered acting seriously, Redford was already shaped by experience, carrying an inner stillness that would become central to his on-screen presence. Finding his path as an actor, Redford's move into acting was less a leap toward fame and more a gradual alignment with purpose. Training in New York exposed him to discipline, critique, and the importance of listening, both on stage and off. Early television and film roles gave him technical grounding, but it was patience that proved most valuable. He learned to observe more than perform, to let characters breathe rather than dominate scenes. This restraint distinguished him in an industry often driven by excess. By the late 1960s, Redford had developed a style that balanced charisma with introspection, making him relatable rather than untouchable. When larger roles arrived, they felt earned rather than imposed. His approach to acting mirrored his approach to life, thoughtful, collaborative, and rooted in respect for the work. These qualities would soon intersect powerfully with another actor who shared similar instincts, even if expressed differently. Butch Cassidy and the Birth of a Bond. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid became a turning point not only in Redford's career, but in his life. Paired with Paul Newman, he found a creative partner whose confidence was matched by generosity. Newman was already a star, yet he welcomed collaboration rather than hierarchy, creating space for Redford to grow rather than compete. Their chemistry felt effortless because it was built on trust and humor, not ego. Redford has often noted that Newman led by example, showing how to carry success lightly and professionalism seriously. On set, their rhythm came from mutual listening, an unspoken agreement to serve the story above themselves. That balance translated on screen and resonated with audiences worldwide. What began as a professional pairing quickly became a friendship rooted in shared values, proving that the strongest bonds in Hollywood often form not through ambition, but through respect. Collaboration without competition. Working together again on The Sting deepened Redford's admiration for Newman, not just as an actor, but as a collaborator. Newman had a rare ability to elevate scenes without overshadowing others, a skill Redford came to value deeply. Their process involved conversation, curiosity, and a willingness to question choices in service of authenticity. There was no rivalry, only a shared desire to get it right. Redford recalls that Newman's humor often eased pressure, reminding everyone that joy mattered as much as precision. Off camera, they discussed life, responsibility, and the strange distortions of fame. These exchanges reinforced Redford's belief that longevity in the industry required grounding beyond success. Newman modeled that balance daily, showing that excellence did not require arrogance. Their collaborations became lessons in generosity, leaving Redford with a template for how to lead creatively without losing humanity. Life beyond the camera. As Redford's career expanded into directing and producing, his friendship with Newman continued to influence his choices. Newman's integrity, philanthropy, and commitment to causes larger than himself left a lasting impression. Redford observed how Newman used his platform quietly, focusing less on recognition and more on impact. This approach resonated deeply, especially as Redford founded the Sundance Institute to support independent voices. While their paths diverged professionally, the underlying philosophy remained shared. Storytelling mattered most when it served truth and community. Their conversations shifted from scripts to legacy, from careers to meaning. Newman's example reinforced Redford's belief that influence carried responsibility, and that success should open doors for others. Even when they worked separately, the values they exchanged continued to echo in Redford's decisions, shaping a career defined as much by purpose as by achievement, loss, perspective, and what endures. Paul Newman's passing marked a moment of deep reflection for Redford, prompting him to consider the fragile balance between public life and private connection. Grief clarified what fame often obscures, that relationships outlast roles and character matters more than applause. Redford has spoken about missing Newman's steady presence, his humor, and his moral compass. Yet he also expresses gratitude for having shared a friendship rooted in authenticity. Loss did not diminish that bond. It distilled it. In remembering Newman, Redford does not dwell on absence, but on influence, recognizing how deeply his friend shaped his understanding of success and decency. These reflections have grown quieter with time, less about remembrance and more about carrying forward the lessons learned. Newman's legacy, in Redford's eyes, lives not in film history alone, but in how people choose to live and treat others. Speaking up with age and clarity. At 89, Redford's decision to speak more openly about Newman feels less like confession and more like stewardship. He understands that stories, when left untold, risk being simplified or misunderstood. By sharing his perspective, he offers nuance, emphasizing that Newman's greatness came from consistency, kindness, and humility rather than myth. Redford does not romanticize their friendship. He honors it by telling it plainly. Age has given him distance from ego and closeness to truth, allowing him to speak without agenda. His reflections are not meant to rewrite history, but to humanize it. In doing so, he invites audiences to see beyond the image and appreciate the values that sustained a life in the public eye. It is an act of generosity, sharing insight not for attention, but for understanding. Legacy, friendship, and quiet respect. Robert Redford's reflections on Paul Newman ultimately reveal as much about himself as about his friend. They speak to a life shaped by collaboration rather than competition, by purpose rather than performance alone. In honoring Newman, Redford reaffirms the idea that true legacy is measured not by fame, but by the lives touched and the standards upheld. Their friendship stands as a rare example of mutual respect, enduring across decades of success and change. As Redford looks back, he does so without regret, grounded in gratitude for having known someone who embodied integrity so naturally. In speaking now, he offers a final gift to audiences, a reminder that behind iconic partnerships are human bonds, and that the most meaningful stories are often the quiet ones, carried forward through memory, influence, and enduring respect.